thank you so much, Bettina. She's always been such a great supporter of everything I've been doing. And honestly, the last year and a half, I've made it my own personal digital sabbatical and really kind of tried to dive deep. And it's been fun because I started a little company called Activate TV, which is a platform that turns any video into a social game, and have been consulting with all the studios working on image recognition things, second screen stuff, and a bunch of other things, and met Brad quite some time ago, and we've been kicking around lots of things as well, but where to go from here? Anywho, I'll just dive right in here. So this has been really, really fun. And when Jake earlier was talking about the studio executive of the future, basically, was the way he sort of put it was, gee, after the old analog crusty guys go away, how is that going to really be transformed? And it's interesting because it sort of led to what I was talking about in this world of, I was comparing what I called a movie marketing executive to a marketing executive. And what I really wanted to talk about was every few years there's somebody new that comes to town from out of Hollywood, and they're made the head of marketing, and somehow it just never works. And I have a theory as to why I think that is. And actually, I think it starts with the interview. Because what happens in the interview is the head of the studio meets this person and says, wow, you do really amazing stuff, and you have really great ideas and innovative ways of going, and I've checked you out, and everybody that you work with loves you, thinks you're just absolutely brilliant. You know what? And we need some fresh thinking. So let's bring you in and have you be the head of marketing. Well, during that interview, they didn't really talk about the other half of the job, because that's usually what it is. So the other half of the job is talent relations. And I thought I'd give you a little personal experience of what I mean by that. And I'm not going to talk about an actor or a director here. I'm going to talk about Annie Leibovitz and my own personal experience. So Annie Leibovitz, world-famous photographer, shot many, many icons that we know, Vanity Fair covers, hundreds of them, and I had never had an opportunity to work with her, but I did on Wall Street 2. So we had just come off of Avatar, which Jake was mentioning earlier, and we only had a couple weeks left of production on the movie, and we realized we hadn't set anything up. We were really in trouble, but fortunately the publicity team had actually gotten this first look with Vanity Fair, so of course that was going to be Annie, and we thought, gee, what a great opportunity to have Annie Leibovitz possibly shoot our movie poster. So I'm given the task of calling and making the deal, which was no small feat as well, because our budgets were not similar, but we came to a number and that was fine. And then I get a call 2 days later saying, you know, we think we're going to pass. I go, really? You know, I'm kind of desperate at that point. I go, really? So what's the problem here? Are you afraid I'm going to have too many concepts, or what do you think? Yeah, I think that's the problem. I said, how about this? What if we let Annie just do what Annie wants to do? During that day of the Vanity Fair shoot, you guys just get me some shots and that'll be great. And they're like, you'll do that? I go, sure. So I fly to New York, and it's a Sunday morning on Wall Street, and the God rays are, streaming through the canyons of Wall Street, and I get there, and there's Annie and her crew, and they're sort of walking backwards, taking pictures, and just getting these great shots of Michael Douglas and Shia LaBeouf. And I haven't even introduced myself, because I figured if I'm not needed, I'm going to just stay in the shadows. But I'm looking, I'm thinking, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to have tons of great stuff. So we finish outside and we go inside, and Annie's got to set up because she's got to shoot all this stuff that makes it feel like she's behind the scenes of the movie. And Josh Brolin and Carey Mulligan are there, and so is Oliver Stone. So my first encounter is Oliver comes to me and says, hey, so can I see some concepts? And of course I don't have any, and so, but I do have a card at that point. I said, Oliver, really, Annie kind of does what Annie wants to do, but I think we're in good hands, so we don't really have any concepts. We're going to let her do her thing. And he says, he looks at me kind of like, nice try, kid, but okay, I'll go with that. So in the meantime, I look over here, and here's a 20-man, 8-camera crew setting up couches for a roundtable discussion. And I turn back, and my seamless is all set up, and I'm ready to shoot the whole thing, and Annie's producer comes to me and says, we're not going to need those two. I'm looking at us. They don't need Josh or Carrie for this shoot. Well, Josh is not really happy about being here this day anyway because it's his wife's birthday, who's Diane Lane. And so I'm looking at him, and I think he's catching wind that he's not going to be on the poster, and he's pushing the keys of his BlackBerry basically through the back of that. And so I'm afraid he's going to get up and walk off, and this whole crew with the couches is not going to get their thing. So I have to take Annie Leibovitz backstage and have the conversation. This is a woman I've never met. So I ask her, so what's the problem? She says, well, I don't really have an idea for the four of them. And I think if you put four of them on a movie poster, it's going to look like a bad TV show. And quite frankly, I just don't really want those images out there. So I squeeze my toes, and I stand up, and I shake her hand. I said, you know what? I can respect that. And I said, the fact that you and I have had this conversation now, I can go back to the studio and tell them that this is really how it went down. And I start to leave. But I turn back and I said, but could you do me one favor? And she says, well, what's that? I said, could you shoot them and never send me the photos? And I look at her producer, and her producer's got these wide-eyed looks and looks at me, and then looks at Annie and goes, oh my God, we have to shoot her. We have to shoot them. And he's like, well, why? She goes, well, because we're shooting Carey Mulligan in 2 days, and if we blow her off now, we're going to be in so much hot water with her later that this is going to be impossible. So they go out there, and they shoot him. And, of course, they did do the little round table discussion, which came off great. And as far as the photos are concerned, she actually did send me all the photos. And where did we end up with the poster? Well, we just didn't have an idea for all four of them on the poster. All that leads back to talent relations again. Now imagine that story, and you're the head of marketing, and you're dealing with every actor and director at town. So my story times all of these people, times all the people that represent them. That, my friends, is what a studio marketing person has to be and must be, and the studio marketing person of the future must take that into consideration. So I'll get on to other meat and potatoes here. I wanted to talk about, I'm feeling like there are three different kinds of movie digital experiences that are out there. There's what I call the movie info hubs, and then there's a middle ground that are sort of experiences that are inspired by the films, and then there are these story extension experiences that I just wanted to sort of touch on each of those rather than these guys did this great, these guys did that great. So looking at the Avengers, I actually spoke to Hillary over at Disney about this, and it was interesting because this is a movie that wasn't a sequel, but behaved like a sequel, because here you've got a half a dozen big blockbuster movies of each of these characters, so they had all this wealth of information. Not only that, they have the archives of Marvel to touch on there too. So the thought was, and if you notice, there is no Disney site for Avengers, and there's no Paramount site for Avengers. Really, when you go there, you're actually going to the Marvel site, but when you go to the Marvel site, the first thing that comes up is this little icon for iTunes. So basically, once you expanded that, you would actually get the social part of that, and then you would go into the site. Well, the site here basically was all about character and backstory and all that kind of stuff. The iTunes is much more about commerce. Here's a crazy concept of actually being able to sell stuff before a movie comes out, which usually doesn't happen. It's usually immediately after. But Apple got involved. They actually sold tickets through the site, and they had all of these sort of digital components that were available, all the other movies based on the characters. They had a specific graphic novel and exclusive made for it. So there was an opportunity to actually move the needle on income before the movie came out. Really kind of an unusual play. So I find it interesting that Disney decided to put their marketing muscle and their money just behind just driving people to these experiences rather than trying to create any other experiences, because the movie, and I guess that seemed to work because the movie did what the movie did. So that's one of those. I bring up Snow White and the Huntsman only because, look, they have a site like everybody else has a site, and what's interesting, and I'll play a little bit of this, I'll tell you what I was thinking about. This is the interactive trailer that they put out there, so if you've seen it, this is sort of a cut down of it all. But what's interesting to me is every time a group has new creative or a new content piece, a new video, they go to the media people and they have to buy their way into getting views and all the rest. And the thing I sort of like about these interactive trailers is why not make that a rich media experience to begin with? So if you're going to spend the money to get people to take a look at that, why not get them to buy tickets or send them to their Facebook and Twitter things? It seems like a natural, why isn't everything a piece of interactive video when you're trying to go out there and push it out to people? So it was just an interesting way in. Interactive trailers, I'm sure you've all seen and done, but it's just, I'm surprised we're not seeing more of it because it seems like an effective use of your media money, even if it's a tiny film, especially if it's a tiny film. Let me move on to the inspired by worlds, I guess. Let's talk about Ted, which there's something about Ted that feels really authentic, even if it's a foul-mouthed talking teddy bear movie. But and I also love the fact that Seth MacFarlane has kind of embraced the social world and the digital things that are going on. I'll give you a little hint of that as well. Oh, I need some volume here, though. Seth is telling us to go to our gentlemen, help me. Well, I will need a little bit more sound coming up. So, anywho, we'll get around to it. And yes, they have a site like everyone else has a site, but the inspired part of this is kind of fun because Ted has his own blog, and I'm seeing that it's basically Seth MacFarlane making his way around LA on any given day and basically saying to himself, what would Ted say here? So this example I have here is, I have a feeling Seth was at an Apple store and running into a Genius Bar guy who had a bad beard and a bad attitude and sort of likened him to Wolverine, or the fact that he doesn't really like Howie Mandel. But of course his language is a little bit more colorful than I want to go to today. But it's interestingly enough, like on their Facebook page, they have this application that you can put Ted into a photo of one of your party photos as well to make him a part of the thing. But of course, Ted has his own sort of way of partying with you. So I tried it myself, and this is us watching Animal House as well. But lastly, on the Ted world, I think what was interesting to me about the outdoor was, okay, great. I'm really happy that they made a big R rating statement on outdoor, just to tell moms everywhere that this is not a family-friendly, fuzzy teddy bear movie. The one thing I really wish they would have added to this whole thing is if they had added a hashtag to the front of this would actually drive the conversation back out to Twitter. So I'm expecting that we're going to see a lot more taglines with hashtags, because why not? It's not that hard to do, and it's not as ugly as Bettina was calling them, the tramp stamp of the QR codes, what they look like. So, let's move on to Men in Black 3. Again, there's a site out there that does all the rest, and when I was talking to Jake, he was like telling me about, he was trying to make this sound like this that this wasn't studio sanctioned, but I have a feeling it was. Anywho, they had this kid and they call him Bug Eyes, and basically he was going out into the world and he was trying to prove that Men in Black were real. Now, I'm going to show you a little just excerpt from this thing as well, and I'll tell you why I really like the idea of it all. Oh, darn. He's talking here. Well, that's not what we want at all. That's actually me playing the guitars. Thank you very much. All right, guys. This is a Steve Jobs pause for the cause here, I think. Let's see if I can get us back into that world. I'm going to try to play this one more time just to see if it'll happen.
Hey, I'm Bug Eyes, and this phone call just might change your life forever. Welcome to the Men in Black Suits Are Real hotline. Press 1 to know what I know and find out how you can help me.
Bug Eyes, apparently you think that I'm an extraterrestrial.
Press 2 for details on where to find me. Press 3 to get the latest on Clive. And An alien, I think, can lead me to the men in black suits. Press star at any time to hear the menu options again.
Anywho, what's fascinating to me there is that could be created by any agency, any group, anywhere. You're not impacting filmmakers, you're not impacting the studio. It's a clever way. They did them in short little excerpts, and they continued a story. It obviously skewed younger, and I think by the time you got to the third movie, they were looking for a new crowd to come as well. I just think it's grabbing the bull by the horns and really kind of saying, look, we can make it all. Because early on, I would get people to say, well, gee, if they could just get the actor to do this or do that. I'm like, you're crazy, because back to the talent relations world, they're not going to do that for you. So you've got to be able to take what you have and make something out of what you have. Let's see, I'm going to move forward towards the what I'm calling the story extension experience. But basically, these are stories that are a part of the movie. They aren't the movie, but they take place during the time of the movie and continue that story and kind of never break the fourth wall. They try not to come into this part of the world. And I'm going to take a look at Hunger Games here. I met with the folks at Ignition who actually did this one, and they did the Prometheus, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Again, there's a regular site, but early on they actually drove people to the world of the Capitol. And interestingly enough, okay, they want you to sign up and things like that. And the first thing that I saw was, gee, Fandango and movie tickets. They're not actually selling tickets to the movie. They're actually selling tickets to the 74th annual Hunger Games reality television show. Again, not breaking the fourth wall, staying inside of it. The districts and tributes, they actually made 12 Facebook fan pages and developed ID cards for people and randomly selected them and gave them districts and specific assignments to do in those districts, which I found pretty interesting. Capitol TV, they actually skinned a YouTube channel more extensively than I'd ever seen before, and they had official Capitol productions, which were pieces from the movie, but also had a lot of user-generated content because there's obviously a good-sized fan base for that. Citizen discussions here. So this whole idea of collective actions, basically it took a group of people to solve puzzle pieces that turn things into other pieces. They had 100 days out from the movie being released as a promotion as well. And actually they had puzzle pieces that you had to print out, very analog, and take scissors and cut them out and put these pieces together. They figured that this, and then you create a poster at the end, but they figured, oh my gosh, this will probably take a day. Well, actually, it probably took an hour. That's how rabid the fans were about it. So it was really interesting to see them push that. And finally here, I thought I'd talk about the Tumblr fashion magazine that they created. The current fashion craze, which to me sort of looks like a Tim Burton on acid sort of look for the Capitol as well. But they actually contacted real-world designers as they did that, and they created fan contests, and obviously some of the fans went a little bit overboard. But, trying to create a fashion magazine that's a part of this world, kind of an interesting, different way in. So here, we're going to get out of that. And now we're going to talk about Prometheus, which I had some experience with on myself. But and it's not so much about the Prometheus site as much as it is about the Wayland Industries corporate site that they created. And I was first made aware of it because somehow I guess I had signed up and I started receiving emails with investor information. They actually created very, very detailed annual reports and telling me how well the company's done and how many times the size Apple it was or whatever. And also on the corporate site, they introduced their latest robot. I'll give you a little sense of that.
What is it about robots that makes them so robotic? At Wayland Industries, it has long been our goal to create artificial intelligence almost indistinguishable from mankind itself. Hello. 8th generation Wayland type. Technological, intellectual, physical, emotional.
Anywho, you notice then they're powered by Verizon. Well, yes, Verizon actually was a partner, and they developed an experience that made you feel like you were in control of the Prometheus ship's control room, and also they were promoting the idea that they have a smartphone app to actually control things in your house. So they brought them in as a partner to help finance this world as well. They also went back into the archives of the Wayland Corporation and had a young Peter Wayland do a TED Talk conference. I'll give you a teeny piece of that.
For those of you who know me, you will be aware by now that my ambition is unlimited. You know that I will settle for nothing short of greatness, or I will die trying. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to change the world.
Couple things interesting to me here. Ridley Scott actually directed this piece and probably did the robot piece as well, but I find it interesting that, okay, here's a great director who's getting the idea that, gee, we have to do more than just make this movie. We have to create more things that are outside of this movie to continue to push this, to get it in the culture, to get it in people's faces, because this is not in the movie. And obviously the production value is super high, so I don't know of any special content group at any of the studios that could actually pull this off. Not that they couldn't technically do it, but to get the cooperation of the actors and all the rest is pretty impressive. And I was impressed by, again, the guys from Ignition who put this thing together, that they had earned the confidence of both the studio and the filmmakers. They actually created a training program where they wrote it, cast it, shot it, and put it together, and tried to make it feel as much like the movie as possible, and I'll give you a little short piece of that.
Hello, I'm Andrea Bishop, Testing and Training Specialist for Project Prometheus, a Wayland Industries special initiative. To support this effort, we're looking for uniquely qualified team members who can think and perform at a higher level. Applicants who are testing from a remote location are advised to use Internet Explorer for an optimized testing experience and special advantages. On behalf of everyone at Wayland Industries, I want to thank you for your interest in joining the Project Prometheus team.
You'll notice the Internet Explorer logo there. Really fascinating. The vendor actually brought that corporate partner to the table here. So they came in not only with the ideas, but a way to finance a piece of what they were doing as well, which I thought was pretty impressive because you get a lot of pushback from the studios on how are we paying for all this? So I thought that was really quite interesting. And Bettina had mentioned the app that I waltzed into her office and showed her. I'll actually have it, a little piece of it here, and I'll show it to you. It was for XMen First Class last summer, and basically what we did was we tried to recreate an old Look magazine feel from the 60s, and all this had content, and if we didn't have content, I got these old Kennedy tapes. So it was like JFK talking about Magneto or Xavier, and recreated stories and just tried to do that deeper, richer, extended story thing. Created magazines as well. So that's a sense of what I brought to her that day. Couple other areas to talk about. They're already coming. This is what we hear, and I just heard this last week. When you go in and talk to the studio marketing guys, they go, hey, these fans are already coming. Why should we spend money building this stuff when they're already buying a ticket? Shouldn't I take that money and buy more TV? And what I say to them is, look, we need to turn those fans into advocates, and by doing that, you're starting a word of mouth that you're not going to get with a TV thing at all. So I sort of got some lean in on that with one of the guys, so we're moving forward on a project as well. But because the other thing that I'm always pitching when I'm in these meetings, and part of the reason they're interested in me is because I come from the older school part of it, and I have that perspective on it as well as where things are going. I'm always looking for things that build upon things that they're going to make anyway. How can digital help outdoor? How can digital help television? How can digital help in theater? And those are the kinds of solutions that perk up their ears, because they're going to do this stuff anyway. And if you come up with something that's completely left field, it's harder for them to sell in. But if you're telling them that you can make their job better, that's a real plus. All right, what would I do? I'm gonna give you a crazy little fun example of what I'm talking about. I'm taking, just as an example, the third Wimpy Kid movie. Obviously, actually it did really pretty well at the box office, given that the budgets were pretty low. And they have not only the fan base of the movies, they have the fan base of Jeff Kinney and the books, because they were very, very popular. So not engaged fans as much as re-engaged fans, because they're already out there. And how would I do that? Well, actually, I had an idea from actually working with Steven Spielberg on Minority Report. What I find is when Steven does a movie and he's getting ready to do the trailer, he never gives you the movie. What he actually gives you is he gives you a bin of the scenes he thinks should be in the trailer. And it's your job to go make a great trailer out of that. If you need more, he'll give you more, but he needs you to prove that first. So what would I do here? I'd actually go to the director of Wimpy Kid 3 and have him put together a bin of the scenes that he thinks should be in the trailer. And of course, what do I want to do with that? I want to put it online, and I want to create a simple tool that allows people to make a little, what I'm going to call a 23-second trailer. And are we going to share it? Yes, we're going to share it. But it's going to be a part of a contest where you're going to kind of reach out to your friends and say, hey, vote for my trailer, blah, 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 blah. And what I want to do from there is kind of get down to the final 5 and actually turn that into a 2.5-minute trailer that we play in the theaters, and we get you to vote on which ones you think are your favorites. So what do we end up with there? Hopefully a few things. One, we've had a trailer in a theater. We've created 5 23-second television spots. Hopefully we've generated a lot of publicity. We've re-engaged our fans on a level that they hadn't been involved. And hopefully, by doing all that, maybe that might even lower the cost of making all the materials for marketing. So, just a thought. Another thought like that, I'm going to go back to Prometheus for just a sec. On the TED conference piece, selfishly, because obviously I'm interested in certain things here, what would I do different there? Imagine, here I'll give you an example. Imagine Guy Pearce is walking around the stage and he basically has the iPad of the future in his hand. And he's not talking about it, but maybe he's touching it and something's happening on the screen. Just by adding that little piece and one little frame to the end here, which let me show you how I would change the ending of this piece.
And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to change the world.
Just by adding that now available in the App Store, I have a feeling that had you pushed that out there, people would be like, what do you mean I can get that thing in the App Store now? Well, of course you couldn't, but you could go to the App Store and probably get the iPad version of that as well, which for me is kind of important. And the thing that I'm still a big believer in apps myself, only because of push notifications. And I don't think I've seen anybody really take advantage of what push notifications can really do. Because if you've promoted it and you've gotten people to download your app, they've raised their hand and said, I'm a fan of this. And generally when you do that, if you ask them if it's okay to send push notifications, 90% of the time, they actually say yes. And what can you do with that push notification? Well, you can respectfully send them new content and create that ongoing engagement with people who've said that they're a fan. But I get the pushback, well, why don't we just send mass email to people? I don't know about you, but I know what my email looks like. It's a lot of business email, personal email, email from companies I've never heard of but somehow got my name. Oh yeah, and then there's a subject line that says from Wayland Industries. Well, I'm already sort of in a daily busy mode, and I might click over that. And I like push notifications because what do you want to see first thing on the first device you look at every day? I think that this is a much better way to initially engage people, because I feel like, what do you look at first every day? Is it your iPad or is it your iPhone? or is it your, whatever smartphone you have? I think this is the way in. I'm a big believer. That's all I have for today. I really appreciate your time, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great lunch.